Some California wineries are being accused of knowingly selling wines with high levels of arsenic. The chemical found in nature and man-made pesticides can be toxic.
That organic wine you're sipping? It's legally allowed to contain arsenic, lead, and something called mega purple, a lab-made sludge that's in millions of bottles right now. But here's what's strange. 4 brands actually refuse to use any of it. Why would they do that? America's best-selling wine brand. 25 million cases every single year. And lab tests found arsenic levels 4 times higher than what the EPA allows in your drinking water. We're talking about Barefoot. Here's the trick they use. The wine is so aggressively sweet that your taste buds never notice what's actually in the glass. We're talking 20+ grams of sugar per liter. That's more than a glazed donut per glass. And it gets better. Ever wonder why cheap wine looks so dark and rich? There's this stuff called mega purple. It's a grape concentrate that artificially deepens the color and adds sweetness. Does it appear on the label? Nope, not a word. The grapes come from California's Central Valley, where it's basically an oven all summer. Quantity over quality, every single harvest. That's the business model. Back in 2015, a class action lawsuit hit Barefoot over those arsenic levels. The company denied everything, and the science got messy. But still, makes you think twice about that $6 bottle, right? Because at that price point, you're not paying for careful winemaking. You're paying for shelf placement and that cute foot logo. But Barefoot isn't even the sweetest offender on this list. That honor goes to something hiding behind Gothic packaging. Apothic Red might be the most honest scam in the wine aisle. Why? Because the bottle literally tells you what's inside. Grape juice concentrate. Natural flavors. They're not hiding it. They're just betting you won't read. This dark blend packs around 16 grams of residual sugar per liter. That's nearly 4 times what you'd find in a traditional dry red. You're basically drinking wine-flavored Kool-Aid with an alcohol problem. And here's the kicker. Apothic became a top 10 wine brand within 5 years of launching in 2010. 5 years. That's faster than most restaurants survive their first lease. The Gothic branding is genius, honestly. Dark bottles, mysterious names. It screams sophistication while delivering the complexity of a gas station cappuccino. E&J Gallo owns this brand. They're the world's largest wine company. So when you see that handcrafted-looking label, it's coming from a California facility, processing millions of gallons annually. The wild part is you could spend the exact same money on an authentic Spanish garnacha. 0 additives. Actual terroir. Real winemaking by people who've been doing it for generations. But garnacha doesn't have a skull on the bottle. So here we are. Now, if you think Apothic's sugar content is concerning, wait until you see what's floating inside America's favorite boxed wine. 5 liters of wine in a cardboard box. That's nearly 7 bottles for the price of 2. Sounds like a bargain, right? Well, Francia doesn't dominate 60% of America's boxed wine market by accident. They've figured out something important. Convenience beats quality for most shoppers. But here's what that convenience actually costs you. The sulfite levels in Francia run significantly higher than what European regulators allow. Those sulfites? They're why some people wake up feeling like they got hit by a truck after just a couple glasses. Headaches, flushing, that weird tight feeling in your chest. And it gets worse. Independent testing found glyphosate residue in their Sunset Blush variety. That's the same herbicide that sparked cancer lawsuits around the world. The grapes come from industrial farms where organic practices aren't even on the radar. Then there's the packaging itself. That plastic bladder sitting inside cardboard can leach trace chemicals into your wine, especially when the box sits in a warm warehouse or your hot garage. Delicious. My uncle kept a Francia box on his kitchen counter for 3 months once. Said it was still fine. I had concerns. The sheer volume also encourages overconsumption. 7 bottles staring at you versus 1. That's psychology working against your liver. Speaking of sugar disguised as sophistication, here's the thing about Sutter Home White Zinfandel. It wasn't supposed to exist. Back in 1975, a winemaker had a batch go wrong. The fermentation got stuck. Basically, the yeast gave up halfway through the job, leaving behind a ton of sugar that should have been converted to alcohol. Most people would have dumped it. But someone tasted it and thought, hey, this is actually pretty good. And suddenly, America's sweet tooth had a new best friend. Today, that accident contains about 5 grams of sugar per glass. That's like sneaking a cookie into your wine without telling anyone. The Trinchero family still owns the brand. But let's be real. What they're making now would be unrecognizable to those original winemakers. We're talking industrial-scale production, assembly line winemaking. And here's something that bugs me. White Zinfandel grapes have thin skins, super vulnerable to pests and rot, so they get sprayed a lot. But the real kicker? All that minimal skin contact strips away the good stuff. The polyphenols, the antioxidants, everything that makes red wine potentially heart-healthy just gone. You're basically drinking sugar water with alcohol and none of the benefits. Speaking of benefits that aren't really benefits, wait until you hear what's lurking in those cute cupcake bottles. Cupcake Vineyards. The name says everything you need to know about their strategy. This brand wants you thinking about dessert, not wine. And honestly, that's exactly what you're getting. Independent testing by moms across America found glyphosate in cupcake wines at 5.2 parts per billion. Their Prosecco? Even worse. 51.4 parts per billion. That's among the highest levels found in any sparkling wine tested. Now here's what really gets me. The marketing screams boutique and artisanal. Cute labels, fancy script. Feels like something from a small family operation, right? Wrong. Cupcake is owned by the Wine Group. Same massive company behind Francia. Same industrial approach. Different wrapping paper. Check the label sometime. You'll find natural flavors listed there. Sounds harmless, but legally, that vague little phrase can hide dozens of chemical additives. Nobody has to tell you what's actually in there. Production happens at California mega facilities processing millions of gallons. Every batch gets the same treatment. Assembly line winemaking. The whole brand exists because someone figured out that sweet sells. Slap a cute name on it, design a pretty label, and people buy without asking questions. But those questions matter, especially when glyphosate keeps showing up in the testing. Speaking of questionable imports, let's talk about Australia's favorite export, Yellowtail. 8 million cases a year. That's not a winery. That's a factory with a kangaroo on the label. And here's what that cute critter is hiding. Australian wine regulations allow up to 70 different additives in your bottle. 70? Meanwhile, the label shows you nothing. Just a happy kangaroo bouncing toward your shopping cart. One additive they're particularly fond of? Velcorin. Sounds like a supervillain, acts like one too. It's dimethyl dicarbonate, a powerful antimicrobial agent that kills yeast and bacteria dead. Convenient for mass production. Less convenient if you're wondering what else ends up in your glass. But here's what really gets me. Yellowtail specifically targets inexperienced wine drinkers. Their marketing research literally focuses on people who shop by cute packaging. Not flavor, not quality, cute animals. The fermentation process? Rushed. We're talking speed dating when wine needs a long-term relationship. Traditional winemakers let fermentation develop slowly, building complexity. Yellowtail treats it like a race. The result tastes simple because it is simple. Now, Casella Family Brands operates one of Australia's largest facilities, blending grapes from wildly different climate zones into one uniform product. Every bottle tastes identical, which sounds like quality control until you realize it's the opposite. But wait until you see what happened to an American wine legend. Here's the thing about Woodbridge. It has Robert Mondavi's name plastered right on the label. Sounds fancy, right? The guy was basically wine royalty in California. But here's what they don't advertise. Mondavi sold everything to Constellation Brands back in 2004. And Woodbridge. It became a completely different animal. A volume machine. Pump it out, ship it out, cash the checks. The grapes come from California's Central Valley. We're talking summer temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The vines get so much irrigation that the fruit swells up like water balloons. More juice, sure, but diluted flavor. It's like watering down your coffee and expecting it to taste stronger. Then there's the additives, sulfites, coloring agents, acidity adjusters, stuff that would have made the original Mondavi wince. A 2016 study found glyphosate in their Cabernet. That's the controversial herbicide everyone keeps arguing about. Not exactly what you want swimming in your glass. And the sad part? Robert Mondavi himself had zero involvement with these wines before he passed in 2008. His name just sells bottles now. A legacy turned into a marketing tool. $8 a bottle doesn't leave room for quality. Something's gotta give. Speaking of names that promise more than they deliver, Kendall Jackson Chardonnay sits in almost every grocery store in America. It's familiar, approachable, safe. But here's what they don't advertise. That smooth, crowd-pleasing taste. It comes from a dirty little secret. Approximately 1.2% residual sugar hides in every bottle. That makes it technically off-dry, not the bone-dry Chardonnay most people think they're drinking. And this wasn't an accident. Well, actually, it was. Once. Back in 1982, founder Jess Jackson had a batch get stuck during fermentation. The yeast quit early, leaving sugar behind. Most winemakers would have called it a failure. Jackson called it a business opportunity. He noticed people loved the sweeter style, so he engineered it into every bottle since. The buttery vanilla notes? That's oak treatment, and partial malolactic fermentation working overtime to disguise the sweetness. It's like putting frosting on a cupcake and calling it bread. Now, here's what concerns me more. Sulfite levels in KJ wines run higher than many competitors. That could explain why some folks get headaches after just one glass. Not two, not three. One. The Vintner's Reserve label sounds fancy, right? Means absolutely nothing. Zero legal requirements. Pure marketing poetry. But not every wine plays these games. Some producers actually tell you what's in the bottle. Finally, some good news. Frey Vineyards became America's first certified organic winery back in 1980. That's 44 years of doing things the right way before organic became a buzzword slapped on everything from potato chips to shampoo. Here's what makes them different. Zero sulfites added. None. Zip. Nada. If you've ever blamed wine for your headaches and just given up entirely, Frey might be your ticket back in. The family grows 14 different grape varieties on their Mendocino County estate, and every single one is certified biodynamic. That's not just organic. That's treating the whole vineyard like a living, breathing ecosystem. And the testing results? Clean as a whistle. No glyphosate. No pesticide residues. Nothing sketchy hiding in the bottle. But here's what really separates them from the pack. Wild yeast fermentation. Instead of dumping in commercial laboratory strains like the big boys do, Frey lets nature handle fermentation. The result is wine that actually tastes like something. Complex, interesting, real. The price? 12 to 18 bucks. Sure, that's a few dollars more than barefoot, but you're paying for actual quality instead of marketing budgets and cartoon labels. Now, you might be thinking organic wine can't work at larger scales. Well, the next brand proves that theory completely wrong. Bonterra is proof that organic wine doesn't have to stay small and expensive. They're farming over 1,000 acres of certified organic vineyards in Mendocino County. That's not a hobby farm. That's serious scale. And here's what makes them genuinely impressive. They've achieved carbon-negative status, meaning their soils actually absorb more carbon than their entire operation produces. Most wineries can't even calculate their carbon footprint. Bonterra's already in the negative. How do they pull this off? Regenerative farming, cover crops between the vines, composting everything. They even let sheep wander through the vineyards to eat weeds. No herbicides needed when you've got hungry sheep doing the work for free. Independent lab tests? No detectable pesticide residues. Compare that to the brands we just roasted. The winery runs on solar power. They use lighter bottles to cut shipping emissions. These aren't marketing gimmicks. They're actual changes that cost money to implement. Best part? You can find Bonterra at most major grocery stores for 10 to 15 bucks. No specialty shop required. No membership fees. Just walk into Target and grab a bottle. But maybe you want something fancier, something with bubbles, something that could actually compete with champagne. That brings us to a winery with French royalty in its bloodline. Now, here's where things get interesting. Domaine Carneros isn't just some California winery slapping a fancy name on their bottles. The actual Champagne Taitinger family owns this place. You know, the people who've been making bubbly in France for generations. And they didn't cut corners when they came to California. Every single bottle goes through méthode champenoise. That's the traditional French method, where fermentation happens inside the bottle itself. We're talking years of aging on the lees, not the weeks that mass producers rush through. But here's what really separates them from the pack. Their grapes get harvested by hand, at night. Why night? Because cooler temperatures preserve freshness. Most big brands skip this entirely because it costs a fortune in labor. Domaine Carneros does it anyway. Since 2008, they've eliminated synthetic pesticides across their vineyards. That's over 15 years of commitment to cleaner farming. The price tag? $25 to $40 per bottle. Sounds steep until you realize entry-level champagne from France costs more and often delivers less. Their chateau wasn't some converted warehouse either. Built in 1987 specifically for sparkling wine production. Purpose-built quality versus retrofitted compromise. Speaking of purpose-built quality, our final recommendation takes transparency to an entirely different level. Ridge Vineyards does something almost nobody else in California wine does. They tell you everything, and I mean everything. Flip over a Ridge bottle, and you'll find the yeast strain they used, the fermentation temperature, the fining agents, even how long the wine aged. It's like they're handing you the recipe card your grandmother kept secret for 40 years. Why does this matter? Because most wineries treat their ingredient list like a state secret. Ridge has been publishing theirs since 1962. That's over 6 decades of here's exactly what's in this bottle. The Montebello Vineyard sits at 2,600 feet elevation. Up there, bugs don't bother showing up. The cold nights and intense sun do all the pest control naturally. No spraying required. Now here's what really impressed me. Independent labs have tested Ridge wines repeatedly. No mega purple, no artificial coloring, no added tannins, just grapes doing what grapes do. Their ATP designation means the winemaking team blind tasted the wine and approved it. Not marketing approved. Actual winemakers. Most bottles run $25 to $45. That's real transparency at a price that won't require a second mortgage. So there you have it. 8 wines to avoid, 4 worth seeking out. Your liver will thank you.